Quackity quack. We are backity back with another episode of the Duck on a Rock Sports Podcast. Or today, should I say Mackety Mac? We are joined by Mac Cerullo. Mac is a Boston Red Sox beat reporter for the Boston Herald. He has also previously covered the New England Patriots. We have also been friends since freshman year at UConn, as well as former Daily Campus partners in crime for all 4 years in stores. 10 to opening. I'm your host, Colin McDonough. I'm joined by my co-host Matt McDonough, and Matt, we met our producer behind the glass. Welcome, everyone. So, Mac, what's spring training been like so far, and what are some of the stories as you've been in Fort Myers now over a week? What are some of the things that you've been working on for the Herald?
Man, well, first of all, I just want to say that introduction was wonderful. It's good to talk to you guys. Definitely miss our old days at the Daily Campus. I will say spring training has certainly been a lot quieter, a lot, we'll say, calmer than perhaps covering the that UConn basketball season back then. Um, no, it's been good, man. It's the Red Sox. It's been by their standards very drama free. The vibes are good. The team looks pretty good. Only really a couple of competitions. Otherwise, the team kind of is set. So, in that respect, it's been different and kind of a nice change of pace. But yeah, I mean, we can get into it in more detail. But overall, it's been fun.
And like you said, with a more relaxed team, but also atmosphere. I know one of the things I love, especially how it is here in New England with still plenty of snow on the ground, is to tune in to just even seeing pitchers and catchers having a catch or watching spring training games in Florida and Arizona from New England. But can you take us through even just short schedule wise of how a typical spring training day goes in terms of your schedule, whether it be a game day or the rare non-game day?
Yeah, so pretty much every day is more or less the same. So they usually open up the clubhouse for the reporters at around 8 in the morning. That'll be open for about an hour or so, 45 minutes. And then after that, Alex Cora will usually speak. Then, there'll be the workouts. There'll be, guys who are the pitchers who are scheduled to throw their bullpens will do that. Guys will go to the batting cages. There's a whole schedule. It's kind of just it's pretty standard. Like they'll all do their usual things, meetings, and then around 1 o'clock is when the game will be. So if that's a home game, they'll all kind of gather in the stadium. About noon, 12:30 ish, and then they'll have the game. If it's on the road, then whoever's traveling will go. But if not, like everybody else will kind of hang back and just continue to do their usual thing. There's a lot of sameness, which makes tomorrow kind of unique because tomorrow is a night game. It's a departure from the usual routine where they're opening the clubhouse around like 1 because they're doing their exhibition against Team Puerto Rico. So, that'll be kind of fun. And obviously the crowd will be a lot more energetic than what we're used to. I covered the Puerto Rico scrimmage before the last World Baseball Classic, and it was just a fun kind of, it was a lot of fun. It was a cool scene. So looking forward to tomorrow night for that.
And I did. I mean, that's great too, because the thing, obviously, with this year, as you said, with the World Baseball Classic, there is that element added to it to give you a little more variety. But even just in general for spring, in terms of how you kind of look at your coverage, I did read some of your notebook from today's 7-6 Red Sox win over the Blue Jays, and then hit a paywall. But beyond that, even watching the one game I watched closely was last week's Pirates Red Sox game, and even Lou Merloni kind of talked about looking at even stats in spring training, where if a guy's 3 for 4, well, did he get 3 hits off of the MLB pitcher throwing 2 innings, or did he get him off the AA pitcher and single A pitchers he's probably seen in the minors? So how do you kind of cater your coverage and kind of figure out what angle to take? Is it a lot of gathering feature material for future articles, or how do you kind of balance everything day to day and for future articles?
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. Spring training stats are basically useless, at least like on the whole. When you watch an individual spring training game, almost all the important stuff will happen within the first 3 or 4 innings because that's when the players who actually matter play. The starting pitcher is almost always the most interesting thing about any spring training game. How do they look? How deep into the game do they go? At this stage, the guys are all going about 3 innings. So, do they actually make it to the 3 innings, or do they hit their pitch limit first and have to come out or something? The pitches themselves, are they making progress? Like, velocity going upwards? Do the secondary pitches look okay, getting swings and misses, that kind of thing? As far as the hitters go, if the guy hits a home run, that's almost always that's noteworthy. If a guy's getting, if a guy's producing a lot of extra base hits, a lot of reaching base at a high percentage, that's good, especially if it's a projected starter. Likely, he's producing that against big leaguers. Um, yeah, that you mentioned that Pirates game. Boy, like talk about a game that was totally useless from the sixth inning onwards. That game lasted almost 4 hours too. It should have been stopped. It was ridiculous. Um, but yeah, so how it works for us though is that like after the starting pitcher comes out, we don't have to wait till the end of the game to talk to the players. A lot of times they'll make them available, I don't know, in like the fourth, fifth inning. Sometimes they'll even open the clubhouse during the game and we'll get interviews then too. So, it's a lot different from like, actual regular season games that matter where, obviously like when the game's going on, it's all they're all locked in. So um yeah, so I think, and then you mentioned kind of like features and prospects. There is just a lot of banking interviews. Like today, I did an interview with a minor leaguer who I plan on writing about once I get back home. Kind of spreading that out during the period of time that I'm not here in Fort Myers. Um, but like it's so relaxed, like you can practically talk to anybody. It's like nothing like the NFL where everything is like run like a military organization. There's no state secrets here. So it's great. Spring training is, as a reporter, really valuable, and I'm grateful to kind of have the opportunity to be here for as long as I was. Even though, yeah, I definitely you reach a point where like, yeah, kind of getting kind of boring.
Well, and that's the thing too, where you kind of mentioned the prospect aspect, where that Pirate game, despite it being, as you said, almost 4 hours and 16-7, on the Pittsburgh side, you have Connor Griffin, who replaced Roman Anthony as the number one overall prospect, and he, had two bombs, one of which was off of Suarez,
Mhm.
I believe, both clearing the Florida Green Monster and Roman Anthony being added to the World Baseball Classic roster. Are you with you kind of covering spring training and the regular season for a good period of time now? Um, are you able to kind of tell who's the big time prospects? Obviously, Griffin or Anthony might stand out more, but some of these minor league guys who get time during spring training games, can you tell who stands out from the rest a little more easily now that it's you've been doing this for a while?
Well, what's nice about spring training is in a lot of cases, it's the first time you get to see them because, the guys who play in Portland and Worcester, you can kind of, if you're based in Boston, you can see them whenever you want, right? But the guys who are like, in the Florida Complex League or in the, Salem or in Greenville, you know, we, spring training might really be the only chance we actually do get to see them. And unfortunately, at this stage, minor league games haven't begun yet. So, like, you can roam around the backfield, but really all they're doing is taking batting practice and just doing drills. So, yeah, when you get a chance like today, Franklin Arias, who's the Red Sox top hitting prospect, started at shortstop, which was a nice change of pace because, the game was in Dunedin. It was like 3 hours away. So, like, to be honest, I hung back because I at Fort Myers because I wanted to kind of work on some prospect stuff. But that was cool because like here's this 20-year-old guy who hardly anyone's actually seen play. And he went 0 for 3, but he had a nice double play, so that was cool. But the real kind of standout, and I mean this in the most literal way possible, is Justin Gonzalez. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. He's 19, 6'7", 275, just built like an absolute mountain. And in today's game, he comes in as a sub and he hits a single 117 miles per hour off the bat. The second hardest hit ball hit by anybody in spring training this year. And I think I read like would be the 12th hardest hit ball in baseball in the regular season last year. Like sick stuff. Like here's this 19-year-old moose just doing stuff like on the big league fields. Like I was so annoyed that I missed it. But also I'm like supposed to. I've been requesting him for ever since I've been down here. So I'm gonna get him later this week, and before I go home, have something written up on him for sure. Unfortunately, I have a 1,000-day Duolingo streak, but my Spanish isn't quite good enough, so it's unfortunate. I'll have to use the translator, but because he doesn't speak English yet. But um, that's the cool thing about spring training. You get to kind of see these guys right at the very beginning of their journey, and then like you get to like see like Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz walking around, and you can ask them about them, and they'll tell you what they think of them. It is great.
Oh, I
That's
love
awesome.
it. And I'm almost at nine. I'm at 924 days. So you have for Duolingo Spanish. Colin's ahead of both of us, Mac. But it's good to know that we are all almost, at least in my case, almost for 1,000 days. And I know he's 19, as you said, but hopefully we'll be able to see him with Portland at some point and catch him at a Yard Goats game eventually.
Yeah, yeah, it won't be much longer if the rate he's going. He was in Salem last year. I forget if he made Greenville or not, but yeah, he's gonna be a quick mover.
Some of those descriptions sound almost like Aaron Judge, as far as and sounds intimidating at the plate. So yeah, like the spring training stuff is great. As Matt said, it is kind of a nice, um, you know, entrance from winter into spring. You did write an article for the Herald about the Red Sox pitching directors. I read the book Skipper by Scott. I believe the late Scott Miller a couple months ago, just about the changing of baseball coaching staffs and front offices. So that was a great article to read just because it went along with that. But the pitching staff, the ace, Garrett Crochet, Red Sox added Ranger Suarez, picked up Sonny Gray. You know, Bayo's been a great pitcher to watch develop. What are you looking at? And even with Chapman and Whitlock back in the bullpen, what are you looking at for the Red Sox pitching staff this year?
Much improved, much higher floor. So what's crazy about the Red Sox last year is they win 89 games, make the playoffs, even though they really only had three starting pitchers the whole year. And by the time they got to the end, they kind of only had one, because Bayo kind of ran out of gas. Lucas Giolito got hurt. Crochet was amazing. Outside of those three, you have the whole rest of the season where Walker Bueller is like really struggling, and eventually they cut him loose, and like everybody else is getting hurt, and the prospects they're coming up do a good job, and they get hurt, and it kind of gets to the point where you're calling up Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early, who were way better than they had any right to be, and like it's just kind of remarkable that they were able to build up as much depth as they did because they needed all of it. That is not going to be the case this year. And if they run out of pitching, you can't say Breslow didn't try because Ranger Suarez is a legit front of the rotation arm. Sonny Gray is a has had a fantastic career. Coming off a 200 strikeout season, that's a guy who's going to raise your floor. And if Brian Bayo is your number four starter, you're doing pretty good. And like the wild thing is like there's one of the only real competitions in camp is like who's going to be the number five starter. And so right now you have Johan Oviedo had a terrific game today, probably the favorite for that right now. And then like Connor Early, who started a do or die playoff game, is probably the next in line after that. And Peyton Tolley, who's, I think probably could use a little bit of seasoning in the minors, but his fastball is so ridiculous. Like that's a big, big time pitch. And like, I didn't even mention Cutter Crawford and Patrick Sandoval missed all of last season. Those are proven veteran guys. And I talked to both of them earlier this week. They are maybe I think they'll start the season on the IL, but they're going to be ready pretty quickly. And the Red Sox might not even need a number five starter for the first month. They have like an off day each of the first 4 weeks, so like it might end up being a moot point. So either way, like they got so much pitching, they're going to need injuries happen, stuff's going to come up. But the Red Sox are so much better equipped this year than they were last year, and they were already good. So yeah, I think they have a real good chance to make some pretty impressive strides, even if a lot of the focus has been sort of on like the guys the offensive additions that people would have liked to have seen them make. And frankly, I think they're going to lead the league in doubles again. Like, I don't know if they necessarily are as power deficient as everybody says. Sure, they're not like the Yankees. They're not just going to have like 30 home run hitters up and down the lineup, but they're going to score runs. And with the starters and the defense upgrades they've made, yeah, they won't have to average 7 runs a game to win.
Well, and even like you mentioned, the hitting, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, they're all back healthy. I know what Meyer and Cedon Rafaela collided, but they were in a game or something. They're fine. Something.
It was Anthony and Raphael. Yeah, that
Okay.
was terrifying. They
Okay.
are both fine.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's an exciting thing too, where, like you said, they may not have the guys that have done it before, but I mean, Rafaela was probably the most fun Red Sox to me to watch last year. Even what his walk-off hit to clinch the playoff berth was great. Even if what came in the alternate greens that we live with slightly more than the yellows. But as far as the Red Sox scoring runs. What do you think, especially Anthony Meyer and Rafael, as they develop? What are you looking to see out of them this year?
So Anthony was last year in the brief period of time that they saw him was outstanding in just about every respect. But the one thing that we really didn't see until late was the power. Because that's what everybody was talking about with Roman Anthony is this premier power hitter. And when he was in Worcester, he would just hit bombs, man. Like last spring training, I covered their spring breakout game that he played in. And when I tell you he hit like a breathtaking home run, he hit it like over this office building that's like in right field behind the bleachers in the Rays spring training complex. And all the Rays guys were like, dude, no one hits it back there. That's crazy. But the first like what it was, 2.5 months, he had 2 home runs in the big leagues. And then finally, kind of towards the end, right before he gets hurt, he had six in like the last 20 games. So that was like the moment where you're like, man, he's this good and the power isn't there yet. And then it clicks and you're like, there it is. So this year, I'm fascinated to see how that continues to progress because if that, like when he gets comfortable, he's going to start launching bombs and it's going to be awesome. So that's what I want to see from him because almost everything else about his game we kind of already saw is like where it needs to be. Um, Sadon, elite defender, really fun player, really streaky. He's just gotta figure out a way to kind of cut down on those stretches where like when he's like bad, it's rough, man. Like it's really rough. The at bats can become really uncompetitive, but the talent is undeniable. So I think they're working on some stuff and hopefully working on his approach, help make that a little bit more consistent. And that might, and frankly, with his defensive abilities, he doesn't have to be elite offensively. All he has to do is just, bat whatever he does. He already is batting like 250. Just draw some more walks. Don't strike out as much. Put the ball in play. He'll be fine. And then with Meyer, he had a little bit of a rough showing last year offensively, especially against lefties. But defensively, he is really smooth. He made some awesome plays the other day when he was at third. And he might obviously play second, but he'd be a natural there too. And Alex Cora really raves about his base running, so that's like another underrated aspect of his game. So staying healthy and kind of developing his offense. Um, None of that's assured, but I think Red Sox fans should have a lot of reason to expect some progress for all three of those guys.
Anyone else in the projected lineup that you want to touch on that you've seen, whether it be in spring training or anything? Obviously, even you mentioned health, like they have to stay healthy. Looking at even Trevor Story, Duran, like anyone in the lineup that kind of has done anything or caught your eye this early on?
Jaron has been crushing it at the plate. So probably the most impressive individual at bat I've seen in spring training. On Friday, Jaron Duran took Chris Sale all the way to the right field bleachers, an absolute bomb of a home run. And what is Jaron Duran's biggest weakness as a player the last season was hitting lefties. Well, Chris Sale is about as good as a lefty as they come. So yeah, you see that, you're like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. And then the other thing is Willie Abreu, consistently, putting together good at bats, but ultimately with him, if he can just stay healthy, he could be real good. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if he can like play 140 games, if he goes like bats like 270, 30 home runs, 80 RBI with like a 800 something OPS with Gold Glove defense, that's an all-star, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
very
you take
interested to
that.
see.
You take
Yeah,
that any day.
he's gonna he's gonna play every day. He's gonna play against lefties. So um he could be certainly he's kind of always been among the most quietly productive players the Red Sox have had since he got called up. So I'm really interested to see if he takes another step too. Also, speaking English now, doing all of his interviews in English, which is nice because like that makes such a big difference because when you have to use the translator, it kind of strips away their personality. Now you can just like walk up to him and just kind of just like you know just chat, get to know the guy for real. And shock, big surprise. Turns out he's actually a really cool guy. It's a lot easier to tell when you can actually talk to him without it
Yeah,
being all weird and stilted.
we're gonna have to become Duolingo friends, Mac.
Yeah, I know.
That'll help our streaks. So like one last section for me. Like you said, Red Sox won 89 games last year. Um, we even were lucky enough to catch you quick in the Fenway Park concourse last August when, really getting up there for a game was great when, the city and the fan base was having a really good time watching the team in a season that was above expectations. Losing to the Yankees, as you even said earlier, Crochet got them 1 win away. They couldn't finish it. What are your expectations for them this year? Obviously, the fan base might have higher expectations, and that leads to possible disappointment. At the same time, when you have the Yankees in the division and the Blue Jays, who were a foot away from beating the Dodgers in a World Series, like what are the early thoughts? I think Fangraphs had them at 86 wins, right there with both teams. So what do you think?
So I with the AL East is going to be very competitive. So like I think they are good enough to win 90 plus games. I think that's the quality of the team. Just knowing how tough the division is, you're right. I think high 80s is possible, and that shouldn't be considered an indictment. Like if they won 87 games this year, I don't know if that necessarily would mean that they took a big step back, even if that would be you know s- fewer wins than last year. I think the Blue Jays are the best team in the AL East, and the favorites to repeat as AL champions. I mean, just that team. That was a really good team last year. I was totally wrong about them. I thought they were going to have the season the Orioles had last year. They completely, totally whiffed on that. But this year, like to their credit, they responded to their loss and they went out and they got better. They brought in some good pitchers. They really made some upgrades, and yeah. So I think the Red Sox are on their tier, but the Blue Jays probably should be considered the favorite. I think the Red Sox are better than the Yankees and the Orioles. I think their pitching is much better than the Orioles. The Orioles have a high ceiling, but there's some volatility there. Like Shane Baz, he could be really good, but he could also get hurt again. They have a bunch of guys like that. And like the Yankees, it's actually the Yankees pitching is their strength, or rather, I should say their starting pitching is their strength. Their bullpen was pretty rough last year, and they have a lot more questions now. Offensively, the Yankees hit a lot of home runs, but what else do they do? Do they make contact enough? Do they play defense? history shows recently they don't do either of those things well enough. So like they'll win. They're going to win a lot of games. Heck, they might even finish higher in the standings than the Red Sox. But I think this team, this Red Sox team, is currently constructed as better. I don't know what to make of the Orioles yet. I think they've made some very impressive upgrades to their offense. And you know what? If the pitching does click, then they're going to be trouble too. Um, that's the beauty of it, right? Like I think this baseball season is going to be really exciting. Um, and I think the Red Sox have done enough where they should be considered realistic. They have a realistic chance to compete with anybody. I mean, it, we'll set the Dodgers aside. We'll deal with them until the World Series. You get there, it's
Yeah,
you get it's anything can happen in the World Series, right? Like the Blue Jays, they were can't believe the Blue Jays lost, man. It was so
yeah.
sad, but it was also just like cosmic almost. Like when
That was one.
Dave Roberts switched Tommy Edman out and Andy Pages in like 2 outs before he needed a big linebacker in center field to flatten Kike Hernandez for the good of the team and to save the World Series. Like that's just like baseball, right? Like
Yeah.
unbelievable stuff.
No, that was a great series. That was an epic game. Probably the best game since 2016 World Series Game 7. That, like you said, just felt like almost like there was something intangible happening here. And again, the Toronto crowd was great, but they just unfortunately couldn't finish it. But now the Dodgers go for a three-peat, so we'll see.
Mm.
And Call did mention how we and obviously I wish it was a little different circumstance where we could have hung out or caught up more before or after the game. But when we went to that August game against Kansas City last year and kind of getting a glimpse of how the media has to jet down from the press box down to the clubhouse. And it was great. We saw you. But just since you kind of went through, and we'd love to have you back during the season, but I know it's a lot busier. But just, I guess, if you could go through a game day experience at Fenway Park, and if it differs from the road since you went through a spring training, um, you know, experience, kind of how does it differ when it's a home regular season game?
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of the general like rhythm of the day is pretty similar, except everything is like like move forward to the afternoon. So typically the Red Sox clubhouse for a night game will open around like 3 o'clock roughly, and then it'll be open for 50 minutes or so. And then about like 4:15, whatever is when Alex Cora will do his pregame, and he'll kind of we'll ask him like who's pitching, who's going to pitch in the upcoming series, and injury updates and that kind of stuff. And then the batting practice will start, so we'll have access to the field and we can talk to players from both teams, kind of whoever's out and about. Usually after batting practice, I'll eat dinner, so that way I'm good to go for first pitch, and then you'll have the game, and then after you saw we all hustle down to the interview room and go to the clubhouse and get our quotes and finish up for the night and do it all again the next day, 162 times a year.
And I should say that the first glimpse we got you of covering the Red Sox, as well as really everyone who watched the Netflix documentary Clubhouse this season with the Boston Red Sox. For those who were paying attention to the 2024 Red Sox, um, our pal Mac Cerullo did make multiple appearances on the screen, both in the press box and clubhouse. One
Netflix.
yeah, one of which you were wearing that snazzy UConn jacket.
Yes, I
So
was. That was the day after the 24 championship game. I had to make sure everybody knew what was up.
yeah, and it was sparkling on the Netflix screen, which was great to see. But obviously, shifting a little bit because it is March on the calendar now. And just to also kind of plug one more thing for you, because I have revisited and re-listened to a lot of your Yes UConn podcasts, which began during COVID in 2020, continued through 2021. So that COVID season with a lot of game recaps and previews, but also the timeless classics, in my opinion, were the beginning of the podcast, reliving UConn's classic games. You had some really great relevant player interviews, as well as ranking greatest teams and players. So it is a great listen, which is 68 episodes of Yes UConn. So just in kind of general, you and I being able to cover Big East NCAA tournament Final Four of the national championship run in 2011. And obviously you and Call got to do the Fiesta Bowl, but since it is March, kind of what does March mean to you, both as a UConn alum and fan, and being able even to, despite you being on the Red Sox beat, kind of rock a UConn jacket, depending on how deep the run in March to April goes.
Dude, that I think about our time covering UConn often. What a great time. We were so blessed, dude, like to be at UConn for those 4 years. Um, Dude, like yeah, I always think back to like that Villanova game that we covered where Kemba hits that floater and you felt like the Gamble roof was going to come down. Or there was a game in Hartford where my car was frozen from an ice storm, and we had to like use like basically break into my own car so that we could get to the game in time. I forget who that was against, but
Was
that
it
was
against
memorable.
was it against Syracuse when they lost? I
Oh,
think.
it might have been, yeah.
Yeah,
And I
And
think
I,
that's the game I texted you guys like down when I wasn't working the game, but I said this team's not a Final Four team. Like
yeah, old takes exposed on that. And just like covering that whole championship run, like Kemba, being in the building for Kemba's buzzer beater was an all-timer. Just one of the best moments ever. And I especially remember we were in the building, so we didn't hear the call of the game. I remember we were back at your house in like your basement watching the Sports Center highlights. And I remember the very first time I heard the cardiac Kemba call, I thought it was so dumb. You can literally like I made like a little home movie basically of that trip, and he'd hear me on the camera. It could be like cardiac Kemba, oh God. And now of course that's like a legendary call, and I have to admit it's kind of grown on me. But yeah, dude, that was this team. I've been enjoying this season so much. I'm so excited for March Madness. It's always one of my favorite, things. It's gonna be good. I love this year's team. I really enjoyed what they did to St. John's the other night, not gonna lie.
yeah, no, Mac. That I mean, well said. Obviously, our time at UConn could not have been better from a sports perspective. Even when you think, as you said, about the women's team, football team, baseball, and men's basketball teams. Field hockey was great too. Like there's a lot of excitement with the soccer team. So just a well-rounded sports experience for us. While we were both, students and writing sports at the daily campus. I will say too that, as you mentioned with the St. John's game, it's kind of crazy to think back in 2011 where you saw the St. John's beatdown earlier in the week and then the close senior day win against Seton Hall. And Colin even mentioned it as we were watching the game together. Um, as nerve wracking as it was, thinking back to Notre Dame beating, it wasn't Kemba's senior day, it was his junior year, obviously, but his last Gamble game, Notre Dame winning, and you kind of holding me back from yelling at Hansborough and the Fighting Irish, because it was just wild how that felt like the season had not reached a low point, but 9-9 Big East. And now I'm getting nervous about a close win in the Big East. And little did we know that was the last game they would lose that entire season. So it's great reminiscing and thinking back. And it's great that UConn students, if you're a senior, hopefully you'll be seeing a third men's title in your 4 years and then a second consecutive women's title.
do
Yeah.
Which
do they pull off the double like 2004 and 2014, or do the men win 3 of 4? Do the women repeat? What do you think?
Women for sure. Lock that in. The men, look, they have as good a chance as anybody, but some really good teams out there. Like Michigan is tough, man. They're gonna be such a problem. Arizona's really good. they got a bit of a math problem though because they don't shoot threes, and Purdue learned the hard way that you can't beat UConn if you don't shoot threes. And granted, Arizona beat them when they didn't have two of their best players. So, but still, excellent team. Duke was real good. That would be a boy. It's been a long time since we had a really meaningful UConn Duke game. I mean, God, was it the Emeka Okafor title? I think it was, right?
That was,
That's
yeah, the Final Four.
yeah, because I know they played that one time in the
Um,
Meadowlands in like I don't know 2013 or something, but like
yeah,
that game didn't matter.
No, and
It's
that yeah, I think that's got to be I mean, unless we're
but
just
we went to that game.
Meadowlands. Oh yeah, but
Yeah,
that
and our
was
producer Matto behind the glass, the three of us with the coaching
Jaleel
buddy.
Okafor's year. Yeah,
Yeah, with a coaching buddy, he got a bus. We went down to New Jersey for the game, and I think that's the night the Celtics traded Rondo.
it
So
was.
it might not have been as noteworthy to college basketball
yeah,
history, but to us, it
Yeah,
was an interesting night.
no, but you're right,
yeah,
Mac. I do think that's got to be the last NCAA tournament game
the
against Duke.
last meaningful one. Yeah, exactly. So that would be something. And then there's just like even the teams UConn's already played. Like Florida is really good. Illinois is really good. Kansas, kind of a weird team, but really good. Um, it's one of those weird things where like if Darren Peterson's playing, the pieces maybe don't fit as well as they do without him. But then again, he's also like potentially a superstar. I don't know. All I can tell you, I went out to Kansas and that was amazing. I was just being in that building and then to watch UConn win. Mr. Hotballs from Connecticut Basketball Spaces, he used the term often where he was like, dude, it felt like we walked in there and sacked Rome. Just an unbelievable day. Um, yeah, that's a little aside, but
I forgot you went out there. And that's for to follow that up because I forgot you went out there and to just ask you in terms of all the venues you've been to, because I know the then Reliant Stadium or whatever it was called in the 2011 Final Four did not have the charm of an Allen Fieldhouse, I'm sure. But in terms of all the venues, is Allen the is it the Fenway of college basketball? Is it? I mean, was it the
yeah,
coolest you've been to? Period.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Allen Fieldhouse was like just yeah. I think Fenway or Wrigley Field is like really an apt comparison because it's historic, but it's also nice. Like for a building that's that old, they've done a really good job taking care of it and making it like you know, keeping the charm while also modernizing it. And when they talk about how loud it gets, that is not an exaggeration. Like it is like everything about that building is perfectly engineered for acoustics. Like it is, I think they had like a decibel meter in the building and it got up to like 120. Like my Apple Watch starts shouting at me. It's just like warning, hearing loss, like imminent. And I'm like, yes, let's go.
It must have sounded even better silent or as
Mhm.
close to silent. And come to think of it, has UConn and Kansas ever played in an NCAA? I know a couple years ago.
What 2016,
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
they
When they got a yeah. So that was
2016 second round.
yeah. When they after
correct.
beating Colorado. So that's probably the only time, right?
I think so.
Yeah. 'Cause we were in
They've only played, I think, 4 or 5 times, and
yeah.
the win in December was the first time UConn had ever beaten Kansas.
Yeah.
So
Which was a great that was and I know Pierce played at Hartford Civic Center in the '90s, which they had like I mean those teams with Scott Pollard, Ray Flip fronts over the years. That would be a cool matchup because even yeah, I forgot the 2016 loss, but even 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we played Arkansas, I think that was who if Musselman's Arkansas team hadn't
mhm.
beaten Kansas, UConn would have faced them, and people were like, "Well, they didn't have to play Kansas." Well, they played the team that beat Kansas in the round
Right,
before.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
as you,
Dude, yeah, I think it's just to kind of go deeper into your earlier question with Allen Fieldhouse. It's without a doubt the best college basketball venue that I've ever been to. Like, I think Gamble Pavilion and kind of to a certain extent Hartford too are capable of getting to that level in terms of noise and crowd intensity. And, when the UConn chant hits just right, it's awesome. But Allen Fieldhouse, there's something about it though that like, they don't do those ad reads that you always hear at UConn. They really they get the balance between letting the band cook and letting like the DJ kind of do his thing. They got that just right. And there's a moment, it's the song The Hum, where it's like uh it's like this like crazy techno song where if you just do like got Spotify it or something and you'd recognize it. They play it right after leading into the last under four timeout in the second half, and then they unfurl this big banner in the student section, and the student section is like an entire quarter of the arena. It's massive, and you're just like it gets so loud, and like it's just this whole sea of people jumping up and down. It looks like a college football student section, and it's like so wild that like the championship banners up in like the baseline, you can see them like just shaking. Like it's I like did a posted like a video to my like Instagram or Twitter at some point, and it's like what is going on in here? I give them big props. It was a really cool environment. Never been to Cameron Indoor. I imagine that's up there. Madison Square Garden, obviously for the Big East tournament, is probably at that level. Never been to the Lahaina Civic Center, but I imagine that must be like a really special college basketball environment. But like yeah, I think if you love college basketball, you got to go to Allen Fieldhouse at some point. It's amazing.
No, that's great, Mac, and the I will say that there hopefully there will be a big Monday night for the UConn men in April. But for you, there's an even bigger Monday in April, where the classic Marathon Monday or Patriots Day, as it's known in Boston. The Red Sox play the Tigers at 11 a.m. But from what we understand, it will be very challenging for you to cover that game. So if you want to kind of take our listeners through your decision to run in the Boston Marathon, sort of your why, and kind of give us a little bit of info on that.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I will be taking that day off from work. No, yeah, no, it's like you said. I'm going to be running the Boston Marathon. It's really an honor, honestly. I'm going to be running for Boston Children's Hospital for their Miles for Miracles kind of marathon team. I applied last fall. Was really grateful to have the opportunity to be accepted and to run for them and to raise money to help support their mission to help children and in need and families who are going through some of the scariest things that you can imagine as a parent. It's especially meaningful to run for them. So for your listeners, so for those of you who don't know, so I have two kids. My son Anthony is 4. My daughter Sarah just turned 1, and Anthony has unfortunately battled some some difficult health issues over his life. He's totally fine right now. I just want to emphasize, like, totally all good. But when he was 1 years old, he came down with appendicitis. Not something that you usually see with a baby, right? And so I remember I'm at the winter meetings in San Diego. So as far away from home as you can possibly be and still be in America, basically. And Anthony had for at that point since Thanksgiving, it had what we kind of thought was like this little bug. Kids get sick all the time, so we didn't think too much of it. So I fly out there. I'm like, well, I'm sure he'll be fine in like a day or two. No big deal. Well, I'm out there for a bit, and at one point, I get a call from my wife, and she's like, Mac, Anthony has like a fever of 105. He's like he's like in real distress. I think I had to take him to the hospital. And I'm like, I'm at this hotel lobby at the winter meetings. Like, probably got like, agents and famous executives and players walking by, and I'm just standing there. And I feel like I'm like the loneliest person in the world, right? Like, imagine getting a call like that, right? It's a nightmare. So I'm like, well, shoot. I gotta get home. So immediately move my flight up. So call my editor. I'm just like, listen, I gotta go home. Like I gotta my son is going to the hospital. Like this, I don't know what's wrong. So hop on a plane, take a red eye home, land at like 5:30 a.m. the next morning, and as soon as my phone gets service again, I have a text waiting for me from my wife saying, hey, so we're at Boston Children's. So the doctors have run some tests and they say Anthony has appendicitis. And at first I'm like, oh, thank God, because, your mind goes to some horrible places. Appendicitis is like, it's not cancer. It's not like something that's like obviously, deadly, but it's also very serious. And, if left untreated, like, if we lived in like, the 30s or the 20s or whatever, a decent chance he could have, he might not have made it, right? Like that's a real thing. So he stays there for about a week and he's good. They take great care of him. He gets to come home for a normal holiday. And when the appropriate time came, about a month or two later, he had his surgery. He had his appendix taken out, and yeah, so that was the first time that Boston Children's was there for us. And fortunately and unfortunately, there have been many more times since for less serious, but like equally, for stuff, right? Anthony has asthma. He's had some asthma flare-ups, one of which landed him back in the ICU for like 3 days last summer. That was really scary. Um, he's had some surgeries, some of them routine, others maybe a little less so. I don't necessarily need to get into all the gory details, but like it's a lot, as a father, as a parent, you know, you don't want to see your kids go through that. So Anthony now is, of course, healthy, happy, vibrant 4-year-old kid. Loves to jump, loves to play, loves to loves to tell funny jokes. He's hilarious. I haven't seen him in like a week. I miss him terribly. I miss my whole family. I miss my wife and daughter too, of course. But yeah, and so right, so I have the chance to run the Boston Marathon, for him and to raise money to help give back. Because Boston Children's basically saved my son's life on at least two occasions, if not more. And so it's the least I can do is to, wake up at some ungodly hours every Saturday morning and run crazy distances just to get myself ready for the big one.
No, no. Obviously, I can't imagine, what you and Christina and your family as a whole has had to go through. And I mean, Anthony obviously has shown such strength and tenacity just in his short life thus far than I have my entire 35-year-old life. So obviously we're all hoping that the toughest part is behind him, and we will put the link both if you are wherever you're listening. If you do go to duckandrocksports.com when this is posted, there will be a link both on our page for Mac's donation page as well as in the caption of where you listen to your podcasts. Because as of recording, there's been over $12,000 raised with right now a $15,000 goal. So we're hoping that listeners and even Mac knows even modest amounts, as you've said before, make make a big difference. So I'm hoping our listeners could chip in whatever they have to obviously it's supporting Mac's run in a way, but more directly, it's every penny is going to Boston Children's Hospital, and hoping that there aren't as many parents having to deal with what Mac's gone through, but that they have the care needed when the time comes for these unfortunate happenstances. With what you did say, Mac, running for Anthony, you did run the Boston Marathon in 2010. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of a retrospect on the toughest challenges of that training, and kind of the race, obviously in general, and where you're at in your training now. I'm sure it's a little warmer running in Fort Myers and it's been in Massachusetts this winter, but sort of where your confidence level is at, knowing, as you alluded to, that you have Anthony going through all this stuff, and now you're kind of uh, taking the torch, metaphorically speaking, and running for him this time around instead of kind of just doing it on your own in 2010.
Yeah, definitely a totally different thing. Like, it's funny, you guys were there the whole time to watch me train then. It's funny, that was basically just like I don't even think there was so much of a why as it's just kind of like I'd always grown up with the Boston Marathon. I really wanted to do it. So one day I just decided, hey, I'm just going to do it. And I didn't really know enough to know how hard it would be. So I just kind of did. And then when I drove back to campus the night of the after the marathon, or a couple hours after the marathon, I'm driving down the Mass Pike, and there comes a point where I've been driving for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, shoot, I just ran from further away than where I am now to Boston this morning. What? Like, and I think that was, oh, you know what? That was the night that the three of us got promoted to editor, right? I think that was when they announced that we'd be the sports editors for the junior year. So I remember I like walked into like literally I just drove straight from home to the daily campus, and I like walk in with my jacket and my medal, feeling like the biggest, like the tallest person like alive, right?
No, and
Um,
it was great because I remember you with the jacket, and I think you had the hat too. And then I think
mhm.
there was a point because you said it was a great night for us, but like even though you felt like you were the tallest person alive as you should have been, I remember at one point you're like sitting there and you're like, "Wait, give me a second because I can't stand up." Like you said, then that's where I had no idea what you were feeling, obviously, but like you're like, just give me a second. I need a moment before I can stand back up
A little
after.
bit sore, yeah.
But
Um,
that was sick to yeah, and obviously that was before the bombing, and everything. But to do that during college and do it because you growing up with the marathon in your life and being an athlete in high school and stuff, I'm sure that was rewarding. But sorry, continue.
yeah. Yeah, so key difference between then and now. My training started in like January, and for much of that training cycle, I was developed like a pretty painful like shin splints or knee, like a knee thing, and that like was really, I think that's just in retrospect because I was building up my miles too much because I had basically starting from zero. This and my time reflected that like all of my training was geared towards finish the race, which I did. My time, awful, 5 hours, 25 minutes, which, you know what? I, I was proud of myself for finishing, but at the same time, I was like, eh, that's not very good. So this time around, one thing I should probably emphasize is that like I didn't really expect to run Boston this soon. It was something I always wanted to do when the kids were older, like old enough to remember it. But last year, there came a point, it was about a year ago now, where I just felt like, so Sarah's born, and then like I kind of look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, okay, you've had all the big the life events kind of transitions have happened now. So what kind of man are you going to be? Are you going to, and I think there's a picture of me with Anthony, both of us in Celtics jerseys. And I look like Jabba the Hutt. I do a lot of hiking in New Hampshire, and I was like, I like aspire to be like some of these guys out who I, know in the hiking community who, will crush these big days and do these big projects. And like it would become abundantly clear that I was lagging far behind. I needed to get in shape. So I did. So last year, 2025 was like the year of fitness, basically. And so for essentially the whole last year, I joined like a run club. Shout out to Dad Run Club Plymouth. So these guys like who have run with every Saturday for like the whole last year. I did a couple rounds of P90X. It came into a point where I was like, okay, I want to keep this going. I need a goal to shoot for. And that's kind of where the Boston Marathon was like, okay, it's time. Strike while the iron's hot. So all that's to say is when I started training in December this year, I already had a much better base to build off of. And so right now, my goal is to finish the marathon in under 4 hours. So doing so would be almost an hour and a half faster than my last marathon. And I do believe that's possible. Um, Last week, or sorry, on Saturday, on my most recent long run, I did, it was scheduled to run 12 miles. So I like sketched out a 3 mile loop around the neighborhood where I'm staying. So I was like going to do 4 laps of that. Well, after I finish it, I come to discover it was actually a little bit more than 3 miles. So I was already up to like 12 and a half. So I was like, to hell with it. I'll just run the half marathon. So I tacked on the extra zero point 0.6 and I did that in under 2 hours. It was like an hour, 59 and 30 seconds. So I like nailed, came like the pace was perfect, right? So it was most of my runs have been this has been a tough winter. Like I beat the blizzard out of town by one day, so I missed that. But boy, I've had some really rough runs. Like there was a day where it was like 3 degrees with like big wind chill. Oh, so brutal. And I had like 10 miles that day. And then the next week it was like even colder, but a little less windy, so not as bad. And that was 12. My longest so far was the Saturday before I got to Fort Myers, 15 miles, and it was like a slushy, sleety, rainy mess. And boy, after that was over, I was like, get me out of here. Get me to Florida, please. This is awful. But I just know that those like the worst one was the one of the two really cold ones. The one it was the 12-mile cold run. I found myself way behind my target pace because I stupidly tried to break trail through sections of my usual loop downtown in the Plymouth waterfront where that were like covered in snow. And that set me like 2 minutes behind. And I'm like, oh, geez, like there's no way I'm going to like do the sub 4 hour pace I need for this whole run. But, I was like, all right, well, I still got 9 miles to go. So maybe if I just book it, I'll still do it. And I fought back and I did. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm gonna get under 4 hours. By that point, so my minimum fundraising goal was 10,000. I'd already beaten that too, so I was like, we're good. I just got to keep sticking with it, and I'm gonna be fine. So, yeah, I feel really good about it. My right knee is a little bit like tight right now, which is to be expected, but otherwise, I've been like totally injury free, and it's been so much fun. I can't wait for Marathon Monday. It's going to be like one of the best days of my life. The first one was unbelievable, and this time I got my Apple Watch, so I actually know what I'm doing. I can pace myself properly. I got like all the supplements I need. I'm like a seasoned vet now, dude. It's like I can't even. It's like night and day compared to 2010.
Wait, and now that you're in Florida, can you give us a little window into some of the runs? I'm sure warmer and a little bit more sunny than you had this winter in New England.
You know what? The funniest thing is, my first two were neither of those things. The first run I have is a 3 mile run. I wake up at like 6 o'clock because I got to do it before, they open the clubhouse. It was 38 degrees. It was like the same temperature as what I'd been running through. I was like, dude, what the heck? Next day, Wednesday, 7 miles, roughly. Like I wake up at like 5 o'clock for that one. Same thing. I'm like, I fly all the way to Florida and winter followed me down here. So it wasn't until Thursday I finally got like a solid day in the 60s. And then yeah, like the 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 the, the 13 miler, that was I think I started about 5:30 and it was like 65 degrees. And that was like this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. So I got to watch the sun come up through scenic Lehigh Acres. Let me tell you, it's a place in Florida, all right. Yeah, it's been fun though. I'm a little bit. I'm very much ready to go home and ready to see my family. Not so much looking forward to discovering what awaits me as far as the snowbanks. My wife did tell me that it's melted. A lot of them have melted, so hoping for the best. But yeah, we'll see.
But by the time you get back, I think um, most of the snow will be melted, and it'll start to feel like uh, opening day and Patriots Day or Marathon Monday is right around the corner.
God, I hope so. I got 17 miles this weekend on the marathon route, so that's going to be a nice change too. I haven't run on the route yet, so hoping for the best. Should be good.
And Mac, not only did he run it, the Boston Marathon, when we were all UConn students, our short stint of living up there, we got together to watch the Boston Marathon together and enjoy some beverages that were not Gatorade or water for runners along Boylston Street together in the Back Bay. So that was a memorable Marathon Monday for us as well, hopefully.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some Sam Adams 26.2. They hadn't even invented that. Although to be fair, I was 19, so I don't think I could have had it when I ran it anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll track one of those down after the race is over, I hope.
And yeah, I mean, because you're gonna build up to it, will you stop at a 20 miler and then taper off from there soon? How
Exactly. 21 this time. When I saw the Boston Children's coaches send that plan out, I roughly knew what to expect. When I saw 21, I was like, really, guys? Come on. But yeah, that'll be I think April 4th. So pray for me. That'll be a big one.
And also before we wrap up and wish you well, uh, I do. You did mention how you still do a lot of hiking in New Hampshire. Just for the listeners, can you? Because again, you kind of didn't. You sort of made yourself seem a little sedentary there, but between your Boston Marathon runs, you did accomplish um, uh, literal reaching the mountaintop of the highest peaks in New England.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I guess yeah, that's funny that it's like both of these things are true at the same time where, I do all this hiking, but I also get really out of shape, which is like, you can only hike like, well, if you're a parent and you live south of Boston, every like once every 2 weeks is like awesome if you can get up there that often. No, so no, what you're referring to is yeah, I hiked New Hampshire's 48 4,000 footers, and eventually also the the ones in Maine and Vermont as well. So the New England 67. And dude, if you've never been up to the White Mountains, it's the most beautiful place in the world. Please, please, please do yourself a favor. Just go out and go on a hike up there. You will not regret it. It's beautiful. Some of the best mountains we have around. Um, Honestly, like my dream, like people talk about coming to Florida to retire. To heck with that. Florida's too flat. Like if I ever like am fortunate enough to like retire someplace, I would love to like get like a nice place up in like Lincoln, New Hampshire or something and just like go out and just crush mountains every day for the rest of my life. That would be just beautiful.
No, that's great, Mac. And yeah, and even if you retired to there, you could still catch the hat I'm wearing is the former Double A affiliate in the Eastern League, the New Haven Ravens, who now are the New Hampshire. They've been since 2003, since they moved from New Haven, but they've been the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. So you wouldn't be far away from baseball either. Any closing thoughts, whether it be Red Sox, UConn, or running related, to leave our listeners with?
Um, just quick shout out to the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, who occasionally are also known as the Manchester Chicken Tenders, one of the great alternate identities that minor league baseball has right now. Um, no, you know what? As far as the Red Sox go, I think this is going to be a really fun season. I think Red Sox fans have, this is, I think, the year that people have been waiting for. Like these past 5 years, it's been a lot. I covered like three consecutive seasons that were all exactly the same, which were all just like, hey, they're like a little better than expected, followed by nah, followed by just August and September. It's like nothing. This year, I believe this year's team is capable of taking what the progress they made last year and taking it another step further. We'll see how much further, but I think this year, I think there's going to be a good baseball season in Boston this year. I hope a very long and fruitful March Madness run for UConn. And hey, fingers crossed. Hopefully, I make it across the finish line, at Boston, at the Boston Marathon as well. And sometime in late April, all of us are feeling real good about ourselves. That would be really great. Yeah, I think this should hopefully be a fun spring for everybody who's listening. Unless you're a St. John's fan. What happened to you guys the other night? Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the how the upcoming Big East tournament goes as well.
I love it, Mac. Thank you so much. That was great. And yeah, I mean, as great of a college coach as he is, we can never forget that Rick Pitino ruin the Boston Celtics. But also, um, I, I will say Andrew Callahan was on this podcast prior to the Patriots run to the Super Bowl. So I think that bears goodwill for you to finish the Boston Marathon in under 4 hours, as well as maybe the Red Sox win the pennant and reach the World Series, which we would take credit for as well. But thanks so much for joining us. For our listeners, this is technically the third podcast us and me, Colin, Mac have been a part of together. Mac's Guest UConn podcast, Duck on a Rock Sports podcast, and the little known Kineticast from the Daily Campus in 2010 to 2011 or 2011 to 2012. So if there was anyone with those audio files, please email them to us so we could listen to them, to take a trip down memory lane, talk about, I'm sure, freezing cold takes, and then we could try to get those files destroyed and wiped off the internet. But thank you again so much, Mac. Good luck with everything. As I said previously, please check out the link we'll be posting to donate to Mac's cause as he trains for the Boston Marathon, as well as providing great Boston Red Sox coverage for the Boston Herald. And please follow Mac at Mac Cerullo on Twitter, currently known as X, but we still call it Twitter. So thank you all to all the listeners, and thank you as always for being part of our flock.